Hey, Momentum listeners, it's Heather Wilson Schiltz. I am a little under the weather this week, so please bear with me, but I hope you still enjoy this episode. Welcome to Momentum, a motorsports podcast powered by High Gear Success. I'm your host, Heather Wilson Schiltz. Here we share the stories and strategies that keep the world of motorsports moving forward. And today's guest is Mike Correa, founder and operator of South Florida MiniGP, a youth road racing series in South Florida. So, Mike, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
So I first found out about your series because I previously had Cole Peterman and his mom on as guests for the podcast last year, and they competed in your series. So that was my first introduction to it.
Yeah, Cole and his family, they're a great family. They've been with us for, I think, just roughly over 3 or 4 years at this point. So very well-known family. Cole is an animal on the racetrack, already has a handful of championships under his belt. So really, really cool rider and really cool family.
What initially inspired you to start the series? Are you a road racer yourself? Do you have kids that race?
Yeah, so I moved down to Florida in 2014, and there was nothing down here to take kids to ride. So when we were up in New Jersey, we found New Jersey MiniGP, which is a sister company of ours. And that's where we learned about it, was up there. When I came down here, there was nothing. And so I reached out to them. I said, hey, how can I get this started? What's the backbone? What do I need to get going? They provided me what I needed. I purchased the franchise and we started it down here in Florida down in 2015. So this will be now our 11th season going into the 2026 season.
That's really cool. So when you were building this from the ground up, what did you feel was maybe missing from youth road racing that you wanted to do differently? So it sounds like there wasn't really any racing in that area, but was there also something that you wanted to do differently based off of past experiences?
Man, that's a loaded question. So I was a ball sports guy. I played Division I soccer, so I knew nothing about road racing. I rode motorcycles when I was younger. I rode in the street. I did a little bit of supermoto racing prior to my kids being born. So that was really my introduction. When I started South Florida MiniGP, it was very much wide-eyed, trying to obtain as much information as possible, figure out what the paths were, what the sport needed, what the kids needed. And a lot of it was, to help get my son into the sport and something that he'd love to do, never knowing what it was going to grow to today. But that was the reason for it to get started. Find a place for something that we all enjoyed to do. And then as I started creating it and building relationships, you start noticing the things that are missing or the aspects that need to grow. And we've been to Europe now a handful of times. So I got to see events in Europe. The British mini bikes was the very first international event that I went to go scope out, and they're massive. I mean, we're talking 200, 300 mini bike entries on a weekend. They've got 14 cameras on the track. They have a full race. I mean, it's like watching MotoGP for minis. So I took them as my base. I was like, okay, I want to get this little thing to here, and how do I get here? So Alan Lord at the time was the guy running it. He helped me a ton. I mean, I was in that guy's ear all the time, and he gave me a lot of great hints that I've kind of carried on moving forward. And now we've gotten to where we are now, the largest mini organization in the United States. I think we've got roughly 40 of our alumni are in the MotoAmerica series. We've got 5 or 6 riders that race overseas. So it's done a lot in 11 seasons. And my partners up north have been running that series for 18 years now, 18 or 19 years. So there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of backing to get us to where we are today.
And that has to make you feel really good when you see those riders move on from the youth and amateur ranks up into higher professional level careers. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the last 2 years, it was always a family thing, right? My wife, myself, and my 2 boys, it was always there at the event running events. So it was always a family thing. My youngest has transitioned to basketball, so he doesn't come to the events a lot. My oldest is racing in Europe in World Superbike this year, so he's not at the events a lot. So now I'm running the events on my own because my wife and I have to split duties with the little one. And the thing that keeps me going is watching these kids grow and progress and seeing them on TV. That's really what keeps this thing going. Because at the end of the day, now it's not It's not, oh, let me go enjoy the weekend with my family and a handful of friends at the racetrack. Now it's, I got to go run a business. I got to go make sure everything's done the right way. I got to make sure kids are learning, families are having a good time. And then I see them on TV putting it on podium in MotoAmerica races. I'm like, oh, there it is. There's the reason why I do it right there.
Yeah, that's a whole different level of responsibility. It's stressful
Oh,
enough as
man.
a family just to take care of your own kid at the track, let alone you're running everything and you're taking care of hundreds of families.
Correct, correct. But it's, I mean, it's fulfilling. It's something I still enjoy. Each time we go out, it's exhausting, right? It takes a lot of work to prepare for these weekends, all the contracts, the tracks, getting the bikes prepared, because we've got everything. I mean, essentially, a new family just has to show up to the event and they're in. We've got rental bikes, we've got every piece of gear you can think of, from the smallest 3-year-old to the tallest 7-foot rider. We've got gear for in our trailer. So in these past 11 years, my main model has been to remove the excuse. I don't want anybody to tell me, hey, I'm not going to your event because I don't know what I'm doing. Well, great. We're going to show you what to do. Well, I don't have a bike. Fantastic. I've got 20 of them. I don't got gear. That's fine. I got thousands of gear back here also. So all the excuses I've heard throughout the years, I've removed. I wish I could remove the financial aspect of it. I wish I could run it for free and people can show up for free, but unfortunately, uh, that isn't going to happen, and it can't happen. There's not enough support there for that. But anything else, any other excuse out there, we've removed it and we make it extremely simple. I mean, for $125, you get to come out, ride a motorcycle, get coached, get introduced to the sport. It doesn't get any easier than that.
I love that because I grew up on the dirt bike side of things. And so anytime that my friends or people that I teach motorcycle safety classes with have invited me to come out to the track, those are my typical excuses, is that I don't have the right bike. Or when I did, even, I wasn't willing to just have the possibility of crashing my street bike,
Correct.
right? And then didn't have the leathers. So I mean, those are perfect and typical excuses that do
Yeah.
require a pretty hefty investment if you don't have rental opportunities.
Yeah, they do, especially like if you take a family, most families have 2 kids. If you gotta go buy suits for 2 kids, there's 2 grand. If you gotta go buy 2 little 50s, there's another 3 grand, right? You're 5 grand in before your kid even knows if he likes it. All that stuff goes away by them showing up. They get coached, they get caught. They're in a safe, controlled environment. They're not left alone. Coaches are out there with them on the track. They're talking to them off the track. And at the end of the day, they're on the track, they're on their motorcycle having fun. They get off and they're running around with the other kids, playing hide and go seek or football or kicking a soccer ball around. They're all doing all the stuff kids do. It's a really, really cool environment. We've been able to create this exciting, laughing, memorable, family-oriented environment in our paddock. I wish I could tell you what the key to that is. I don't know. Have we had a handful of bad apples? Sure, they come and they go, and we've managed to kind of move them along as best as possible. But you walk into our paddock and automatically you're like, wow, this, it just feels like a big family. It really, really does. And I'm proud of that's probably the most thing I'm most proud about.
Yeah, I always think it's really interesting when you are at the racetrack and you see kids riding and they're so competitive and they're so serious on the track. And then they get off and just like you said, they're running around, they're hanging out,
Yep.
they're just being like typical kids. It's like
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
different personalities.
And there's so much mixture in that paddock. You can have 3-year-olds on electric motorcycles all the way to retired, men and women that come from all different aspects of life. And they're all mingling, right? They're all mingling, they're all getting together. There's single adults, there's fathers, there's uncles, there's all kinds of people that come out and ride because minis is so accessible, right? Everybody's got a mini somewhere. Someone's got a dirt bike, someone's got a Grom, someone's got a 125 sitting around somewhere, and we make it so easy for you to be able to take that bike and put it on the track. We've got 18 classes. I mean, if you've got a motorcycle that doesn't fit in those 18 classes, I think you've got a bigger problem than we do.
What goes into choosing the venues for the series and what makes a specific venue good for youth road racing specifically?
Oh man, pre-COVID, I had 8 racetracks in Florida. Now, 6 years post-COVID, I've got 3 racetracks in Florida. I don't have anything in Miami. We used to have a gorgeous, gorgeous venue down at Homestead Miami Speedway that after COVID, insurances went up, and unfortunately, we can't afford the insurance bill at Homestead, so that took that one away, and it's a gorgeous facility. Palm Beach International Raceway shut down post-COVID as well, so we lost Palm Beach. So the only two local-ish racetracks are the one down in St. Pete, which is T4 Kartplex. Then we've got just north of Tampa in a city called Bushnell, you've got Bushnell Motorsports Park. And then up in Gainesville, you've got Gainesville Raceway. Our insurance requires us to be on physical racetracks. So I can't go create a racetrack at a really large parking lot. Like if I went to Dolphin Stadium and rented the parking lot, my insurance wouldn't cover that due to safety issues. They want us to be on racetracks, something that's purpose built for what we're doing, especially when you have 3, 4, 5-year-olds on dirt bikes or on motorcycles. It's not something you want to set up with cones and then next you know the kid goes off whiskey throttling somewhere, ends up against a car or a light pole. It's just it doesn't sound safe saying it, and I can understand why insurance companies wouldn't want us to do that kind of stuff. So our venues have dwindled. At one point I had expanded and I created South Carolina MiniGP, and I had gone as far north as South Carolina, Georgia, and Alabama. It was a lot. We were driving 14, 16 hours one way, and it just physically and mentally, it wasn't feasible trying to get back on a Monday morning to go to work. So that kind of shut that down. But sticking to just Florida, we've got 3 really, really good kart tracks between T4 Kartplex, Bushnell Motorsports Park, and Gainesville Raceway. And that's where our venues kind of go through. So we do one camp a year. It's a 3-day camp. And we usually shuffle it year to year from racetrack to racetrack, so that way we can get a lot of the locals and a lot of stuff to do. I wish we had more, so that way people don't have to travel 4 or 5 hours to come out and hang out with us. But for the most part, a lot of our families don't have the issue with the driving just because of the experience they're getting for the whole weekend. I mean, you're arriving on a Friday at night, you're leaving on a Sunday afternoon, you're exhausted, you're happy, you're excited for what got done that entire weekend. Makes it worth the trip.
You talked about the camp there. I saw on your website you also incorporate teen coaches into your training days. So how does that program work? And why was it so important for you to include kind of like peer level mentorship?
So the majority, I'd say you're probably 70-30 on kids versus adults at our camp. We do get quite a bit of adults, and we do have some adult coaches for that. But in my experience in the last couple of years, no one's going to talk to your kid in their language more than a kid that they look up to. So a lot of our teen coaches, a lot of our kid coaches have been in our program for many, many years, have done the camps themselves, have heard it from my mouth and some of our other professional coaches' mouth how to do the drills. And no one's going to explain to a 5, 6, 7-year-old how to do a circle drill better than a kid that they look up to that can actually hop on the bike and do the drill with them. Visual, mental stimulation, verbal stimulation is what really gets the camp to succeed. And we do the same thing with the adults. So the adults in one drill could be getting coached by a 10-year-old, and the next drill could be getting coached by a MotoAmerica racer. And those coaches circle around, the riders circle around to the different drills. They get different views, different aspects of how drills get done. And to be honest with you, I think that's more successful than just throwing somebody on a motorcycle and saying, okay, go do a circle, without truly understanding what they're looking from in a circle. And when you can get them to mentally register, oh, this is why I'm doing this, and when I do that, that's the cause and effect, it clicks. And next thing you know, everybody's doing things that they've never done before, and the excitement just goes through the roof.
You have rounds scheduled for 2026. Can you walk us through what a typical season looks like and how those rounds are structured? I think you mentioned they're kind of multi-day, but kind of walk us through the schedule.
Sure. So this year is a very exciting year. We've been approved by the FIM and Dorna to run the Moto Mini Cup for the United States. So there's 2 of us. There's an East Coast and a West Coast. Our first rounds here, first 5 rounds, will be the qualifiers for that championship. So there's a company called Ovale. They create GP chassis motorcycles. Those motorcycles come in a 110, a 160, and a 190 configuration. The main 2 classes for that championship is the 160 and the 190. So our events structured for the first 5 are going to be a little bit different than the last 6. So for the first 5, the concentration is going to be on that FIM accreditation and championship for those kids to be able to go race in Spain for the World Championship. It's a really, really cool path. We'll take up our hour talking about it, so I'll give you cliff notes. So really, really cool opportunity that they've given us to be able to select the kids based on their racing and championship to go out to Spain. Outside of that, our typical race weekend. On Saturday, we call it our development day. So on Saturday, we've got 5 groups that separate by a motorcycle category. So it's not like you're going to have a kid on a 50 out there with an adult on a 450. Everything is segregated, safe. Every single class has coaches in it. So coaches are circling around, helping, picking up riders, helping riders with whatever stuff that they're having difficulties on the track. Our 6th group is called our new rider session. So for our new rider session, anyone that's coming out for the very, very first time, get a dedicated coach. That coach goes out with them, takes them around the racetrack, takes them through the paddock, works on them with their throttle and simple things to get you comfortable on the motorcycle. So by the end of the day, you're doing laps around the racetrack on your own. That's the goal of the new rider session. So that happens on Saturday. On Sunday is our race day. Sunday, we kick off the morning with qualification. So it's all timed qualifying for every single class. That's how you figure out your positions for heat race 1. You line up to heat race 1. Let's say you're starting in pole and you finish heat race 1 in 4th. Well, now you're starting the main event in 4th place. But let's say you started heat race 1 in 7th and you finished that race in 2nd. Well, now you're starting your main event in 2nd place. So you've got your qualifying, heat race, then your main event. Once the main event's done, we do our trophy ceremony. Everybody packs up and goes home. So it's a very packed weekend, but we get a lot of stuff done in a short period of time.
When it comes to the coaching, are you guys utilizing comms devices at all, or is it really like coaching, go ride, and then coaching afterwards?
So on our Saturdays for Dev Day, it's more of a follow hand signal. So a lot of the racetracks, unless I'm taking over the entire venue, it's very difficult to set up drills. So we don't set up drills on our typical sprint race weekends. It's all on-track coaching with hand signals and lead and follow. So that's how that works on Saturday. On Sunday, there's no coaching whatsoever. On Sunday, it's our race day. So you're qualifying heat races and main event.
What was the motivation behind the FIM designation? Obviously, that's huge. And I know that you've had a lot of racers move on to higher ranks, but was it something that they approached you about, or you thought like, hey, I want to pursue this?
I think the FIM's been doing the Moto Mini for roughly 5 years now. The Road to MiniGP created that pathway. And I've been attempting to get approved for it since the day it came out. Naturally, they went to the national organization to run it the first couple of years. Didn't do what it was supposed to do. Then it went off to a sole party who they tried to do it. It didn't happen that way. Finally, it got down to the mini orgs that are actually the ones creating the grassroots for the kids. And they were successful last year. Thankfully, they know who I am. John Hopkins and I have a really, really great relationship. He reached out after he was successful the first year. And the biggest complaint was, we don't want to drive 36 to 40 hours to California to race this. So how do we make this massive country more achievable to parents? And so hence the split of the East Coast and the West Coast. So yeah, it's still difficult for the families that are in central United States, from Texas all the way up to the Dakotas and all that stuff. It's still difficult for them. But now you don't have families from the East traveling 30 plus hours to the West, or families from the West traveling East. And ideally, the game plan is to create more centralized locations to reduce the travel for the families, and then create a central championship around it to be able to send the riders out to Spain. It's going to take time, right? We need families to be supportive and to be patient. The FIM is very strict. They require a certain amount of attendance. They require a certain amount of rules and regulations to be followed. The insurance that they require is also higher than what we're used to. So finding funding and stuff for that, it's all the back stuff that families don't really notice. They just want their kid to go out, race, and succeed. So they've got to be patient with us. They've got to be patient. It will grow. And the only way it's going to grow is if they attend, right? So if we're holding, let's say, for instance, this year we're holding East and West Coast, and we don't get the attendance that the FIM requires, they very well could say, sorry, guys, we're not going to give you the accreditation for 2027, and we're back to square one. So we do need the families to support and be patient and do the drives and attend these events so that they can keep to grow.
You mentioned a little too about the types of bikes that the kids are riding, but can you expand on that a little bit more?
Sure. So our Kid classes are based on 50s and 110s. So our youngest riders are riding Honda CRF 50s. They graduate as they get a little bit bigger and they can put their feet down. They graduate to either a Kawasaki, Yamaha, or a Honda 110cc that's semi-automatic. So they're still not working with a clutch. Then you've got the Ovale class, which puts you on a GP chassis, and they come on a 110cc. You can get it automatic without a clutch, or you can get it with a clutch system, which now brings you into the upper bikes where now you've got a clutch, you've got gears, you've got shifting, you've got everything, all that process. So it's a gradual transition for the kids. For the adults, they have a big range of bikes. They can go from Grom Z125s to those guys who like the dirt bike chassis. They can be on 125s, 150s, 250s, or 450s. If you've got a street bike, if you got a 300 or 400, we've got a class for those guys that want to come out and ride a 300 or 400. And we've had some vintage guys bring out their vintage two-stroke GP machines. We've got a GP Premier class that allows you with a GP 125, 250 two-stroke to come out and race those. So like I said, if you've got a motorcycle in your garage that doesn't fit one of these classes, you're probably riding the wrong stuff. So it's a big range for the adults, but we keep it concentrated for the kids just to make sure they're gradually working their way up in their confidence.
How do you balance competition with safety and fun, especially when you're working with a lot of younger riders who I feel like kids are so fearless. Like they don't always have that safety in mind. So how do you balance having that great competition but also keeping safety in mind?
The great thing about this sport is that once you have a mental lapse or you go over that line of maturity is the wrong word, but you go over that line of where you are at skill wise, the motorcycle and the asphalt will teach you that lesson. Fortunately and unfortunately, our coaches do a great job during our dev day on our 3D camp day to build that base for them to understand what they're doing. But you're always going to have those kids that are senders. I mean, there are kids that are senders. They continue to be senders through most of their career, and trying to help them balance as they get older and more mature to understand, hey, there's really nothing wrong with being a sender. However, if you kind of back this off a little bit or back that off a little bit, you're not only going to protect the equipment, which teams are going to love, you're going to protect your body so you continue to do this for a really long time. So the sport itself teaches them when they make the mistakes, and then it kind of brings them back. And then you have the verbal conversations with those riders that are just like, man, I got to go. It's like, well, hold on a minute, take a deep breath. You're going to get there. You're fast already. Let's just control you a little bit so that way you can last a little bit longer in the sport.
You mentioned it a little bit previously, but what role does community play within the paddock? Something that I heard from Cole Peterman and his mom was that this environment was super welcoming and that they stepped into it really not knowing anything. And so do you feel like that plays a large role in the success of the series and the experience for the families?
I think that's probably 90% the reason why this series does what it does. A lot of people give me credit, and yeah, I might be the face, and the beard is what everybody knows me as, and they see me on social media, but I can't take any credit besides wanting an environment that's welcoming to everyone. When people see a new face in the paddock, it's like watching a superstar walk into a concert. Like everybody goes to them, wants to talk to them, greet them. Where'd you come from? How'd you find out? What can we do? Can we help you unload? Can we help you? Whatever it is, that entire paddock just engulfs you, and it's an amazing feeling. I know I sure as heck wouldn't be able to attend every single new person that shows up and try to make them feel as comfortable. And I'm so excited that our paddock, aside from the volunteers, just the families in the paddock alone, take on that responsibility. They share the events, they share their experiences, they post everywhere how much fun they have. It's just, if it wasn't for the community, it probably wouldn't be what it is today.
For a parent or a young rider that is thinking about getting started, what advice would you give them before jumping into road racing? So you talked about having the bikes, having the gear. What other things should they mentally prepare for?
The mentality aspect of it is to keep your expectations low, right? You're not going to come out and you're not going to blaze the racetrack. As a parent, you need to have that understanding as well, right? There's a lot of parents that think their kid's the next Marquez or Rossi. And that's a very, very long journey. It's a very, very long path. Our events are there as grassroots to build you, give you that base, that platform, that understanding of what the sport does so that you can continue on your journey, whether it's international or national level, but always having the mentality of, hey, this is for fun, this is for excitement, right? There's no teams in my paddock looking to give your kid $1 million contract. That's not going to happen in my, maybe in the next 10 years, but as of right now, that hasn't happened yet. And then that's including my own son. So come out with the mentality of having fun, learning something new, being open-minded to the criticism that you're going to get, because you're not perfect. And this sport is roughly 80% science, 20% human involvement. So if you can get the science part down and understand the science part down, whatever tweaks you do as a human just makes it that much better. So I'd say mentally prepared to come out, have fun, learn something new, and then from there you can progress as the child takes on and does their thing.
I think that's great advice.
Yeah, it's the only way we're able to function, because if you imagine me trying to come out and run these events under a stress monitor or making sure everything was perfect, forget it. I'd drive myself insane. So as long as I'm having fun, everything else will flow and everything will do its thing.
From an operational standpoint, what are some of the biggest challenges in running the series, and what have you learned along the way?
Oh, insurance, man. If it wasn't for the requirements, qualifications, and the cost of insurance to run these events, the partners I have in these racetracks are phenomenal. They all work with the budget that we need to stay under to make sure these events keep carrying on. Our community makes the tracks want to work with us, because it's not like we're bringing, a bunch of people who are fighting, leaving trash, destroying their venues. We probably leave the venues better than when we got there. So the facilities know who we are. They want us at their events, because aside from our event, people are going to go practice, right? So the weeks leading up to a race event, these racetracks are piled with people getting practice in and getting ready for the weekend. So there's a good revenue for the racetracks. But man, insurance companies have such a hard time understanding what we do. And I need insurance companies to allow me to have a 3-year-old on a racetrack, because the only prerequisite we have for a child is that they can ride a bicycle without training wheels. If your kid can ride a bicycle without training wheels, we can take them from there and teach them how to ride a motorcycle. So every year, unfortunately, insurance costs rise. When you have people suing racetracks or suing racers, like the latest, Rocco Landers one that just came out, that doesn't help anyone. That doesn't help the sport. It just makes things more difficult, which is why we lost Homestead. We lost Homestead because they're like, you're doing what with what? Yeah, it's going to cost you 25 grand for an event to run, to have our insurance. It's like, well, that makes no sense. I mean, we can't afford that. So that's probably the toughest thing. The logistics and getting bikes prepared, that's all, I break that up amongst the weeks leading up to the weekend. So I take a couple bikes a weekend, I work on them, I go suits, I clear them out, I clean the tracks out. All my contracts get done ahead of time. So usually we have our schedule for the following year out in November. So all my contracts and stuff I get handled between October and November, and I get all the paperwork out of the way. And the hardest thing is just insurance. Insurance is the hardest thing, negotiating with them, fighting with them, trying to get them to get us a cost that I don't think I've raised the price in the last 3 years at MiniGP. And I'm proud of that as well. We've been able to keep the pricing at 125 to 150 bucks for a multi-class for the last 3 years. You're not going to get any cheaper riding anywhere else. And that's just the constant battles that I have with the insurance companies to be able to get us what we need so that we can run these events.
I work with a lot of event organizers, and that is always a sticking point, and unfortunately just continues to get worse.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a really big struggle for the motorsports industry as a whole going forward if we can't even secure insurance, because it's so unaffordable that the sport won't be able to survive at all. So it's definitely a big concern. And also just sometimes it's not even the families suing. Unfortunately now their health insurance companies are going after tracks or the organizers, because if they have a huge bill, let alone a death, they want to make somebody responsible and they don't want it to come out of their pockets. So it's really hard when even the family and they're not going to be the type to sue, more than likely. Sometimes it's out of their hands. So yes, insurance is a very painful sticking point, and hopefully we can continue as an industry to kind of advocate. And obviously safety is important, right? Like we all value safety. We want to have good guidelines, but we also need insurance companies to work with us. So
Correct. And I mean, having the business now for 11 years and knock on wood, no claims and no major injuries and stuff like that is a sticking point for me in having conversations with them. And luckily we've been able to use that to kind of help that out. But when you get to racetracks, the reason I don't expand to other racetracks is they're owned by conglomerates and big companies that expect, large amounts of insurance. When they're asking me for a $5 million, $10 million policy, I say, guys, that's not what we do. All right. So insurance is definitely for sure the hardest thing I deal with year in and year out.
So looking ahead, what is next for SFL?
So ideally, last year I was able and successful and created a nonprofit organization tied to SFL. It's called Mini Superbikes USA. I want to try and grow that as much as possible. The idea behind that nonprofit was getting to the point where we could offer financial support to those racers that are moving on to the next level, but just don't have the funds to do it. Going through the path with my son into Europe and all the stuff that we do, you start to realize how exponentially greater the costs keep rising. So the whole theory behind that nonprofit was to have these organizations, these financial individuals that have, money to hand out, use the tax write-off to help a sport, to help a family move forward. So in the next 5 years, I want to concentrate on growing that side of the business so that I'm able to use it for what I wanted it to do. And the other side is eventually create that Ovale Moto Mini Cup champion coming out of the United States versus it being Spain or Italy. So those are probably the two goals I've got in mind in the next 3 to 5 years. I'd like for those to be successful. I have a other larger ideas, but I've got to wait for certain things to land and certain products to pan out in order for those to even speak on those. But for the main part, 3 to 5 years from now, I'd love to have an American champion come out of Spain, out of this Moto Mini Championship, and then ideally grow Mini Superbikes USA to be able to say, hey, racer A, B, and C, your funds for MotoAmerica are fully covered. Go have a great season and don't worry about the finances, right? That would truly be the next milestone I'd like to achieve.
Tell people where they can connect with you or the series online.
So we've got a handful of ways. On Instagram, we're at SFLminiGP. Same thing on Facebook. And our website is SFLminiGP.com. You can find anything and everything you need on our website, from our schedule to rules, regulations, blogs, news updates on the website. We use the social media just to announce the events or to share what our racers are doing. So if you want to meet some of our racers, you can head on to Instagram or Facebook, get to see all of our kids. We share all the stuff on there of what they're doing on their own personal pages. And then we've got a discussions page on Facebook where you can go in. If you're a new rider or a parent that wants to get into this, you join the discussions page. You can ask anything and everything you want, and it's tons of information in there for you as well.
Well, thank you for joining me, and thanks to everybody for tuning into Momentum. This has been a production of High Gear Success. If you want to connect or recommend a guest, head to MomentumMotorsportsPodcast.com. Until next time, keep the momentum rolling.